Welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for taking time for yourself today. I always say knowledge is the key to a better life. So let's learn why you need to understand the difference between these. Ask yourself what it is you want out of the relationship you're in right now, even if you're already committed or married, because these two things can lead to completely different outcomes. Traditionally speaking, or as in my kids would say, in the olden days, happily ever after was the expectation. But this came after sex, which came after binding yourself to a partner or marriage, which came after feeling like you were in love, which came after someone told you you could actually be with that person. This is nice to think about in a fantastical and idealistic sort of way, but this was also before women were told what a penis was and how to use it. And for men, premarital sex was found in out of the way bars and definitely done in secret. This map of love led to so many unhappy marriages for generations. And to be frank, it still does. And that blows my mind. My point here is not to promote having sex before marriage, because that really doesn't make things any easier, does it? In fact, it can actually complicate things a lot. But the point I'm trying to make here is that we need to know, number one, what the mechanics of it all is. And number two, feeling like you're in love and loving someone are totally different things. So now I have another class called Let's Talk About Sex, and you're going to find more on the mechanics of sex in that class. But this one, we're just going to talk about the difference between love and being in love. There's a popular kids movie, you know the one, with the childlike redheaded mermaid that falls in love with a human, and she tells her daddy, who's the king, "But daddy, I love him." Okay, this is not love. This is being in love. The kind we create with our eyes. You know, that tingly feeling you get in your tummy, and it's time sensitive and extremely perishable. This kind of being in love. Because come on, she can't really love him. She doesn't know yet that he drools in his sleep and farts so loud he scares the birds from the perch outside. He leaves his dirty, sweaty socks on the couch, making the dog want to roll in it. She hasn't even come to realize that although she was a mermaid, he is a seafood lover and consumes it daily, right? Wake up call. So, what then? Well, let's take a look at what, quote, in love really means. According to collinsdictionary.com, in love is, quote, feeling enamored, infused with, or feeling deep affection or passion in, or in a state of strong emotional attachment and usually a sexual attraction. Now, this quote is from The Merchant of Venice, right? Love is blind. This type of love applies to being the in love type of love. You close your eyes to the person's fault or faults, to all that may not jive with your values, or you let this kind of love take you from the path you've chosen because of those feel good emotions that are whirling through your brain. Now, according to the National Library of Medicine, you can literally be addicted to love. This type of in love, anyways. In the article called Addicted to Love from the National Library of Medicine, quote, the greatest overlap occurs in neurochemical regions of the brain involved in the processing of dopamine, oxytocin, and other neurotransmitters such as serotonin. Margulies goes on to state, quote, through sex with our partner, orgasm, serotonin rush, and momentary muscular relaxation comprise the most potent and popular drug we have, unquote. My addition to this is that this information is that sex is almost always readily available. and the only physical side effect is a possible STD. Now, when you're talking about addictions, the addictions to being in love, in the type of in love addictions, STDs don't really seem all that important. That is until you get one. And when you're no longer in love and the fun has run its course and you're viewing the other person's faults with disgust, the relationship ends. Sometimes as you wave goodbye out of your car down the street, or a divorce. Or sometimes it comes when we actually wall off pieces of ourselves in that relationship, except for the actual physically being in the same place. And what I mean by that is you stay married or you stay physically in that relationship, but you are no longer contributing emotionally or mentally. Now, I personally don't like to use the words true love because for me, it evokes the fairy tale life that is completely opposite of what happens in real life. Now, yes, one can find true love and be happy in it, but it doesn't come without trials and usually having to go through the refiner's fire more than once. Healthline.com lists these in the true love column and says that these are keys to finding and keeping such a type of love. So if being in love comes with a timestamp, then what is true love in its truest sense? Well, from my experiences, love is tested, tried, and stays true. It should change with the people who are in it. True love accepts them and realizes its own faults and tries again and again. According to BetterHelp.com, quote, true love is two people who are willing to put aside their personal desires for the other person. It means loving someone enough that you are willing to look past their imperfections. Now, it doesn't mean that you don't see your partner's flaws, but that you choose the person anyway. True love involves forgiving each other because no one is perfect. It means letting go of unrealistic expectations and knowing that there will be times when your partner fails you or lets you down. And you're going to do the same thing to them. There will be times when you'll need to apologize. True love is willing not to keep count and working to move past the difficulties, unquote. So, obviously, the emotions felt when being in love can cross over into the true love category, but it's usually not true to say the same for the other way around. J.S. Park says, quote, real love doesn't meet you at your best. It meets you in your mess. We all know that life is messy most of the time. I think that there's no truer way to convey what real love is than this quote. Well, for those of you who were raised that sex only comes after finding that true sort of love and after getting married, what's love got to do with sex? Well, everything to those people. Love and sex are one and the same. For these people, sex is associated with this form of love, the love that is true and tested. Those who were raised in a society of more sensual freedoms, or perhaps were left to fend for themselves on what is right and wrong, oftentimes use sex as a tool. For instance, as a form of power, or as a coping mechanism, or simply as a feel-good drug or a way to prove their independence or coming of age. Now, although that's really actually the opposite, because having sex with someone is joining yourself to that person instead of refraining and being your own person by yourself. But that's another class for another day, yeah? Well, both of these choices have pitfalls. However, if this more marriage, traditional kind of relationship, meaning sex comes after marriage, leads to a marriage before the emotions are truly investigated within that relationship, the in love feeling will fade. And that leads to heartache and resentment and usually divorce. Now, for those who have sex with one or more partners before marriage, sex can become hard to associate with that true form of love once you've found your person, because it was used previously as a tool instead of an expression of the emotion of love. So, what's the answer? Well, knowledge is the answer. We have to figure out what we want in each relationship we enter into. Do I just want that in love, temporary feeling, and when it's gone, so too will be the relationship, and that's okay? Or do I want more? Am I looking for a real love relationship? We can be programmed by our families, religions, experiences, ethnicities, traumas, communities, our wants for comforts, and the list goes on. In what we look for a partner. Sometimes your choices are not cognitive, meaning we choose this person over that one because of some deep seated fear or trauma from our past. Now, I asked some of my closest friends and family to weigh in on their top things to look for in a partner. And this is what was consistent across the board. That's the one on the left says My People Poll. Now, if you made a list of the top 7 things you look for in a partner, what would they be? According to psychalive.com, this is what they said, and their column is the one in the center. Quote, while we can't know for certain all the good and bad characteristics our partner will bring to the table when we first meet, there are certain universal traits you might want to look for in a relationship partner that will ensure a happier outcome, unquote. I would add that realistically, which is the column to the right, if you find your partner at 20, the things you're probably looking for will be vastly different than if you find your partner at 45, as we change during our lifetime. And as you change, so will your list of attributes. If you find your partner early, that can be wonderful. But if one of you changes and the other one does not, well, outside of infidelity, according to OrshonLaw.com, the top 2 reasons for divorce in the US are lack of intimacy and communication, proving my point here. So, for those who explore these emotions and give their relationship time to evolve before the sealing of a marriage, and they come to the realization that it will not be all roses, sex, and bliss, then they're going in with eyes wide open. Knowing that there will be ups and downs, and it will take sheer determination at some point in that relationship to keep it together. But that's where love is formed. Now, psychalive.com says, no matter what we think we're looking for in a partner, the people we wind up choosing don't necessarily match our criteria for an ideal companion. The reason for this is very simple. We don't always want what we say we want. Now, what this means is that we tend to pick partners who fit in with our existing emotional baggage. We're inclined to replay events and dynamics that have hurt us in the past in our adult relationships or from our childhood. We choose partners who fit in with those destructive patterns, not because we enjoy them, but because they're familiar. Okay, now that makes sense to me. Just stop for a second and think about that. The destructive patterns from your life. Are you currently with someone who has similar destructive patterns from their life? I know that in my life, I can see that this is true to some extent, and it's true for me. Not that I like it, it's just the way it is. Nobody told us to look otherwise. So, recap. Being in love is usually about the first parts of a relationship, the sensuality and sexual feelings towards someone, and that will wear off. The true form of love will only come after communication, acceptance, trials, and perseverance. Education is key here because you won't know what to ask if you don't know what you don't know, right? Shame and sinful feelings have no place in this gaining of appropriate knowledge. But make sure to get your information from reliable sources such as WebMD or your doctor, or maybe it's your religious leaders, a family member. You can do research online for sex education. Keep in mind that pornography is never a trusted source of education. Psychology Today .com lists 4 ways that pornography causes problems. Number 1, even infrequent use of pornography has negative effects on sexual satisfaction. Number 2, it's inaccurate. If porn is taken as a how-to manual for sex, it does a bad job, to say the least. When it comes to instructing viewers on sexual pleasure, porn is generally inaccurate and likely to lead to low-quality sex and infrequent orgasm, especially for female partners, as well as one-dimensional. Likely unsatisfying sex for males as well. Number 3, it contributes to emotional detachments. Pornography use is associated with relationship distress, disrupted attachments, and strain on pair bonding. Harm to relationships is due to pornography's, quote, sexual script consisting of eroticism, objectification, promiscuity, and misogyny, which is, on its face, antithetical to secure attachment conceptually linked to loneliness. And all that word mumbo jumbo means it's going to have you isolate yourself sexually from your relationships. Now, this is a perspective supported by the analysis of Pornhub videos, the depictions of sexuality. And number 4, it leads to divorce. Beginning to use porn may be an indicator of marital dissatisfaction, infidelity, or both, unquote. Now remember that just because someone says sex should be this way or tells you how you should feel about it does not make it law, does not make it right for you or for anyone else for that matter. You have to decide for yourself. Give yourself permission to seek out what it is you want to know. Now, I found this quote and image striking. This this is the real and true kind of love, okay? Not the in love temporary love. We all find and create and stumble into chaos. It's inevitable. However, if you have found and created that true sort of love in a relationship, then you will have this. And you will also be willing to be this for your person. Now, in all fairness, I found this listed on Pinterest multiple times, but I can't find the person to credit for the original saying. If you know who quoted this first, please contact me so I can give credit where it's due. And thank you. Thank you so much for choosing you today, for finding time to become the person you want to be. If you're ready to make a plan specific for your needs and would like someone to coach you along, I'm ready for you. When you're ready, go to my blog and click on the coaching tab for free consultation. And we can make a plan to set your goals into motion. Make sure you reference my resources pages on my blog. Go to my homepage and you will see one for mental health, self-care, and healthy living. You're going to find a lot of fun and helpful things there. You can also find me on these social media sites, and feel free to email me with any questions. I love to hear from you guys. And always, please subscribe. Your support in doing so helps me be able to provide these free classes. So subscribe to my YouTube channel, Kathleen Ann Unshamed. As usual, I'm citing the sources that I used in my classes. Feel free to go to these sources for further education of yourself. These are safe and wonderful sources. Thank you again.